He sat in the middle of his room, surrounded by a chaos that seemed to mirror the whirlwind of thoughts in his head. Papers were stacked haphazardly, notifications from his phone pinged incessantly, and a half-empty cup of coffee cooled beside him. He had a million things to do, yet every attempt to start one task was thwarted by another distraction. His mind bounced from one worry to another, from unfinished projects to forgotten commitments, and from fleeting ambitions to paralyzing doubts. He felt exhausted, not from physical exertion, but from the relentless storm of thoughts that refused to settle. No matter how hard he tried to focus, clarity seemed unreachable, slipping through his consciousness like water through fingers. It was then that the presence appeared, not in the room, but in the mind. A samurai, calm and composed, appeared as if stepping out from the mists of history. His armor was simple, yet perfectly maintained, and his posture radiated serenity and strength at once. In his hands, he held nothing, yet the weight of discipline and centuries of practice seemed to emanate from him. The young man's heart skipped a beat as he realized he was witnessing a living embodiment of mental clarity. The samurai's eyes were steady, unwavering, and it felt as if they could see straight into the chaos of his mind, piercing through the clutter and hesitation. The samurai moved slowly, deliberately, each gesture purposeful, like a silent teacher demonstrating a lesson without words. He gestured toward the young man's chaotic surroundings and then toward his own calm posture. It was clear, the external chaos was a reflection of the internal. The samurai's life, disciplined and deliberate, was built on the practice of cleaning the mind daily, removing unnecessary thoughts, letting go of distractions, and maintaining clarity even in the face of challenges. The young man felt both awe and longing. He realized that no amount of ambition or intelligence could compensate for a mind clouded by constant clutter. He watched closely as the samurai sat cross-legged on a quiet mountaintop in his vision, closing his eyes and breathing slowly. The world around the samurai seemed still, yet fully alive. The air carried a faint rustle of leaves, the distant cry of a bird, and nothing more. Thoughts that would have otherwise overwhelmed him were absent. There was only presence, only awareness. The young man could almost feel the calm radiating outward, a contrast so stark against the storm of his own restless mind. He felt the weight of his mental clutter pressing down, yet in the presence of the samurai, he sensed that such weight could be lifted, not by forcing it away, but by observing it, acknowledging it, and letting it go. In a sudden impulse, he leaned back in his chair, closing his eyes, trying to imitate the stillness he saw. The samurai's subtle nod seemed to encourage him. He focused on his breathing, noticing each inhale and exhale, feeling the rise and fall of his chest, the rhythm of his heart. He acknowledged the flood of thoughts, work worries, personal doubts, fleeting distractions, without resisting them. Slowly, the rush began to subside. The chaos in his mind did not vanish entirely, but it began to separate into distinct strands, no longer a single, overwhelming storm. One by one, he imagined the unnecessary thoughts drifting away like leaves on a stream. He realized then that mental clutter is insidious because it hides in plain sight. It isn't always loud or urgent. Sometimes it's the quiet, nagging doubts, the half-formed worries, or the endless what-ifs that consume energy without purpose. The samurai's daily practice was a shield against this, an intentional act to clear the mind before action, to ensure that every decision, every movement, came from clarity rather than confusion. By observing the samurai, he understood that this practice was not a luxury or an abstract philosophy. It was essential to achieving focus, discipline, and mastery over life. Gradually, he felt a sense of calm forming, subtle at first, then growing steadily. The cluttered desk around him seemed less threatening. The notifications were still there, but they no longer demanded his immediate attention. His mind felt lighter, clearer, and he noticed for the first time in weeks that he could consider his next action without being paralyzed. The samurai's presence remained, serene and patient, a reminder that clarity is cultivated daily, not achieved in a single dramatic moment. Cleaning the mind was not about emptying it completely but about creating the space for intentional thought and purposeful action. As he opened his eyes, he felt a profound sense of insight. Mental clarity was not an abstract goal, it was a practice, a daily ritual of attention, focus, and letting go. The samurai had shown him that even amidst the chaos of life, one could maintain presence, make better decisions, and act with intention if the mind was regularly cleaned and organized. He felt a deep curiosity and commitment forming, an awareness that this was a lesson worth adopting every day. The storm of thoughts was still there, but now he had a method to navigate it, to clean the mind and create a foundation for focus, discipline, and purposeful living. After experiencing the first moment of mental clarity, he realized that the process didn't end with a single effort. The storm of thoughts could return at any time, but now he understood that the mind, like a room, required daily cleaning to maintain focus and composure. He returned to the image of the samurai on the mountaintop, the figure sitting with perfect stillness, radiating calm. The samurai's practice was not a one-time event but a daily ritual, a deliberate commitment to maintain order within the mind. Inspired, he decided to follow this example, committing himself to a routine of mental cleansing, not for hours, but for a few minutes each day, enough to restore clarity and sharpen focus. He began by sitting comfortably, closing his eyes, and taking slow, deliberate breaths. At first, the thoughts came in a flood, unfinished tasks, social worries, fleeting memories, but he did not fight them. Instead, he observed each thought as it appeared, like a leaf floating past on a stream. Some thoughts were urgent, others trivial, but none needed to control him. He imagined the samurai sitting beside him, guiding his attention with quiet patience. The act of observing without judgment itself felt like a weight lifting from his shoulders. The mind, previously tense and restless, started to settle, and a sense of spaciousness emerged, allowing him to see clearly the priorities and intentions that had been buried beneath the clutter. Over the next few minutes, he practiced letting go of thoughts that were unproductive or unnecessary. The samurai's influence guided him to focus not on forcing mental emptiness but on creating space for clarity. He visualized a small, glowing orb within his mind, a representation of calm focus, and watched as the chaos faded around it. Each breath reinforced the orb's light, anchoring him in the present moment. The noise of distractions, the buzzing notifications, the scattered papers, the internal monologue, faded into the background. He felt a sense of control he had never experienced before, a quiet authority over his own mind. The benefits of this practice became apparent as he moved through the day. Tasks that had previously seemed overwhelming were now approachable. Decisions, once muddled by doubt and anxiety, became clear. The simple act of sitting quietly and cleaning his mind had reshaped the way he perceived challenges. He noticed that when he paused daily to practice this mental discipline, he could plan more effectively, act with intention, and respond to obstacles without unnecessary stress. Each day reinforced the lesson: a mind maintained with regular care is a mind capable of mastery. Time-lapse imagery in his imagination showed him following this ritual repeatedly. Each morning, he would sit in quiet meditation, observing his thoughts, letting go of mental clutter, and sharpening his focus. Over days and weeks, the transformation became evident. His environment mirrored his internal clarity, papers were organized, tasks prioritized, and decisions approached methodically. He felt more confident and grounded, his energy channeled toward meaningful action rather than dissipated in mental chaos. The samurai's presence, once a distant vision, now felt like a constant guide, reminding him of the power and necessity of daily mental cleansing. He began to understand why the samurai valued this practice above all else. It was not ritualistic for its own sake, it was a strategy to maintain peak mental performance. A mind clouded by unnecessary thoughts cannot act decisively, cannot focus, and cannot cultivate discipline. By cleaning the mind every day, the samurai created a foundation for mastery, for deliberate action, and for facing life's challenges with composure. The young man realized that ambition alone was insufficient. Clarity and focus were essential tools for transforming intention into achievement. With consistent practice, he noticed subtle but profound changes. Stress no longer accumulated like a heavy fog, he could approach tasks calmly and systematically. He became aware of distractions before they derailed him and could redirect his attention intentionally. Each session of mental cleansing reinforced his ability to prioritize, plan, and act decisively. The daily ritual, initially unfamiliar and awkward, became a natural part of his routine, a source of energy and clarity rather than a chore. By the evening, he felt a sense of quiet triumph. The chaotic thoughts that had once dominated his mind were no longer in control. Instead, he had cultivated a mental space where clarity, focus, and intentional action could thrive. The samurai, now fading gently from his imagination, left behind a powerful lesson: mastery over life begins with mastery over the mind. A clean mind is not merely calm, it is capable, disciplined, and ready to act with precision. Each day's ritual reinforced this truth, creating momentum that extended beyond meditation into every decision, action, and interaction. He leaned back and opened his eyes, feeling the room differently. The clutter was still there, but it no longer felt oppressive. His mind had become a tool, sharpened through daily practice, capable of navigating complexity and chaos with composure. He realized that this hidden method of cleaning the mind every day was not an esoteric secret but a practical, accessible strategy for anyone willing to invest the time. The power of the samurai lay not in their sword or armor but in the discipline of mental clarity, a habit that transformed thought, action, and ultimately, life itself. By committing to this daily practice, he understood that mastery was not a distant goal but an ongoing process. Each day offered a chance to reset, to focus, and to act with intention. The storm of mental clutter could return, but now he had the tools to face it calmly, clearing space for clarity and purposeful action. Cleaning the mind daily was no longer optional, it was essential, a simple yet profound practice that allowed ambition, discipline, and focus to flourish simultaneously, shaping both thought and life in the process.